Hi, my name is Seth Judd, and this fall I will be going to Utah Valley University to study international business management. And I'm super grateful to Nikolet Law for the opportunity to have reflected on how I've balanced maintaining my core values while exploring new ideas. And I remember a time in my childhood when I declared triumphantly that Bonneville Elementary was the greatest school to exist in the history of the universe. Well, at least that's what I told friends and family when I was 7 years old, right before I moved to Chicago. I could not dare imagine going to another school when I believed that I already had the best. Making the transition from a conservative, almost monoculture community to a liberal, diverse, and unique community in the south side of Chicago became the catalyst I needed to really identify my values. I didn't really know what I believed until those values were challenged in different ways. When my family moved to Chicago's vibrant south side, I encountered a diverse world of new ideas and cultures that challenged my perspective. Like Nikolet Law, which expands into new communities while preserving its Midwest values and mantra of be kind, do good, I learned to balance my core beliefs with openness to new experiences. Naturally, after arriving, I believed that my ways were right. But I quickly learned that I was correct in some cases, but less so in others. I could not have articulated it at the time, but I learned that inherently in every culture, there are good values to be learned from. As I reflect, I recognize the importance of balance, progress, and sharpening of one's values as they enter the unknown. Now, flash forward about 10 years, and I can't imagine the life that I live now without the impact that moving to Chicago had and the influence of my diverse friends and their cultures in my life. On top of that, I recently returned home from serving as a missionary for 2 years, helping the Spanish-speaking immigrant population of Boise, Idaho. During my service, I aimed to help my friends really attain balance in their lives while they explored a new country, culture, and lifestyle. And whether it was my transition to Chicago or my Hispanic friends' transition to living in the United States, I noticed that we often all find ourselves stuck between what we know and what's unknown, between what's comfortable and uncomfortable. If we hold on too tightly to what is known, we'll never grow. If we're too quick to let go of our past, our lives become chaotic. Perhaps Aristotle's wisdom applies here. In his Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle taught that virtue lies in the mean of extremes. As it applies to the known and the unknown, properly balancing where we come from with where we're going is that golden pursuit. If we were to proceed forward in balance, we would never be able to achieve what is possible if balanced. We would grow unproportionately, having too much or too little of important emotions, attributes, and values. We would never achieve our ultimate potential. Now, as we begin to understand that balance is vital in order to progress in our exploration of new ideas, we must now identify the difference between progress and change. Our core must remain unchanged as we explore new ideas, concepts, systems, cultures, or spaces at higher institutions. We must understand that there is good and there is bad. We must assure ourselves that the higher institutions ultimately aim for us to progress and obtain more good, and not just change and conform to their values. Christian apologist and writer C.S. Lewis explains, "For change is not progress unless the core remains unchanged. A small oak grows into a big oak. If it became a beech, that would not be growth, but mere change. Indeed, the very possibility of progress demands that there should be an unchanging element." My core values after moving to Chicago were not changed simply upon arrival. Instead, they were refined and enhanced even more as a result of the exposure to new ways of finding the good in the world that my community offered me. I was made a better me, not simply changed to some image that somebody else projected onto me. As we approach progress while in balance, we must assure ourselves that we are not too conservative to possibly reject anything that would truly benefit our journey, and that we are not so radical that we're over-adjusting and losing balance and virtues that we already had. Balance and intentions to progress, however, will never amount to anything if the person isn't in a circumstance to progress. A strong oak sapling could be planted into a small pot, but eventually it would need to be repotted if it is to ever really reach its potential. If it is not repotted, it risks the branches overgrowing the roots, resulting in eventual death. Any progress made would eventually be lost. A change of circumstance, or being repotted, would allow for the sapling to not just reach a certain limit and continue to survive, but it would allow for the oak to flourish, ever strengthening its roots while branching into new territories and environments. That same plant, once transplanted, if not pruned and cared for in an adequate manner, would also die. The change of circumstance is not enough if constant and quality care is not continually provided. Latter-day Saint apostle and educational authority Neal A. Maxwell explains, "For most of us, however, even when the inner desire is there, it requires a periodic sharpening of some outward circumstance to quicken any existing inner desires and to get us to act upon these." I really didn't have a choice in my family's move to Chicago or in my change of circumstance, but it was because of that change my inner desires were sharpened. My immigrant friends, whether by choice or by necessity, had their outward circumstances completely changed when they moved to the United States. I observed those friends who allowed such a change to sharpen their lives. I also observed friends who shrunk from such large changes and who lost parts of themselves as a result. Those who really gained their footing in such a new place were those who balanced where they were from and where they are now, and really focused on progression, allowing themselves and their lives to be sharpened by their new circumstances. To conclude, true balance comes in mediation. We need to be introduced to other values in order to be able to better understand our own. As we continue onward in the exploration of our values, we must remain focused on obtaining more good in our lives. We must strive for progression and not settle for mere change. And lastly, we must allow for changes in our circumstances to sharpen us so that our balance and desires help us strengthen our core, grow deeper roots, and reach our ultimate potential.